What's up, Mushroom Fam? It's Gary with Fresh from the Farm Fungi. I'm here at our new farm in Sedalia, Colorado. So if this is your first time watching the channel, a little bit of back history. This is our 6th year commercially farming mushrooms, and we recently moved to our mushroom farm in Sedalia from Denver. So it took us about 18 months to put up this building, and we just started doing 2 farmers markets this summer. So it's been an extremely challenging year. I wanted to talk about some of the more, elusive subjects in mushroom farming. A lot of the channels out there kind of paint a picture of, a rosy perspective of mushroom farming, but we have gone through a bunch of hurdles this summer, and I wanted to reflect back to the community on my thoughts on how to overcome those hurdles, on some of the problems that we faced as a 6th-year mushroom farm. I don't consider myself an expert. I'm still learning, but one of the goals and the missions of my company and this channel is to just be super transparent about mushroom farming. It started off as kind of just recording my journey along the way, and I thought that I finally got some time to sit down and reflect on our most recent hurdles and obstacles that we overcame to get to where we are today. So hit that subscribe button if you're new. I'm thinking about expanding into a Homestead channel as well. This is always going to be the mushroom-based channel, but we are kind of developing our property here in Colorado. So please comment below if there's anything you are interested in seeing, and stay tuned. I'm going to be releasing a bunch more videos once I catch up with my editing. Okay, so I guess the inspiration for this video started this past Saturday at the farmers market in Castle Rock. There was a really nice gentleman who came up to my booth, and he started asking a lot of interesting questions, and then it started getting, pretty probing with the questions that he was asking. He wondered how many mushrooms I was selling at the market, what different types I was doing, and, how long I was there. So about 5 or 6 minutes into the conversation, he kind of divulged his purpose in coming to the farmer's market. So it turns out that he was the previous mushroom farmer for the past few years at the Castle Rock Farmers Market, and I was really interested in hearing his story. So we have been waiting to get into the Castle Rock Farmers Market for about 3 or 4 years. Every summer we would request to join the market, but the market owners said that there was already a mushroom farm. And then back in May, they reached out to us because they know that we had a strong interest in joining that market. It's only 15 minutes from our new location, which is why we wanted to kind of jump into that local market. And she expressed that the farmer had some issues and wasn't going to be there for this summer. So I jumped on the opportunity, and I'm super grateful for all of our customers that we've met and formed relationships this past summer. So back to the story. This gentleman he seemed really interested in growing mushrooms still, and kind of had like almost an upset look to him that I was there selling my mushrooms at the market that he used to sell them at. And if it turns out that he had a bad fall down the stairs, and he showed me like a big scar on his knee. So he had to stop growing mushrooms, and he ended up selling his business, and I feel like he was very remorseful for that. I hope I helped to give him some closure, or maybe he will, start everything back up now that he's healthy. But from the sounds of it, he was out of work for about 8 months, and that kind of, had me reflecting on my own farm and my own operations and what would happen if something tragic like that happened to us. So luckily, I do have a lot of help. My wife helps us out. She joined our farm full time now. And then we have some friends in the area who have watched our farm while we went to the Telluride Mushroom Festival, and so forth. So it's very important to have help that you can lean on when you're doing a business like this. It can be very time demanding and it's very strict schedule. So if you do get hurt or sick or something happens where you can't be at your farm, it kind of puts a damper on your business. And I feel like this gentleman just couldn't keep up with the lost revenue or whatever. But anyway, so that kind of brings me to today, and it's August here at our farm. This year, we had a bunch of unexpected things and some expected things that kind of have been a challenge for us. I would say this is probably the most difficult year in our mushroom farm. So first and foremost, we had a really hard time getting this building up just because of, the state of the pandemic. When we started building out our infrastructure, it was hard to get supplies. So that kind of stretched out our timeline for our expansion of our mushroom farm. So back in May, we ended up finishing pouring out the keyway in our Quonset building, and that led to some inspections by the county. So all of these inspections went well, but as a new mushroom farmer, it can be very stressful kind of dealing with regulators and the county and getting all of that straightened out. So we had to go through a final building inspection, which that kind of consisted of them just checking our building to the specs and making sure everything was up to code. So that went really smoothly. And then next in line was a defensible space inspection. So that might be specific to your region, I guess. So here in Sedalia, there is a high risk for forest fires. We're kind of in a remote area of the state. There's only a few hundred people in our town, so everyone has a lot of space, and that means that there's a lot of trees. And, with a new building, the county wants to do their due diligence to make sure that it's not a fire hazard. So back when we were building the building, we had to clear 100 feet around the perimeter just to make sure that it was safe for fires. And that inspection also went smoothly. So thankfully, it's been a really wet spring, and it allowed for some of the regrowth of this vegetation, which was also kind of involved with the third inspection. So after the defensible space, we had to get our building and our property inspected for drainage. So being on the Front Range here in Colorado, there could be, flash floods at any time. So it's really important that your property has the correct drainage, and it consists with the county planning for their drainage. So it was pretty straightforward. We just had to put up a silt fence until our greenery grew in, so that way the foundation for our building wouldn't wash out if there was a rainstorm. Okay, so that was the third inspection. And then most recently, we had a business inspection by Douglas County, which is our county here in Sedalia. So they came out and inspected our business to make sure that we were compliant with all the regulations here in Sedalia, and that also went smooth. So the thing I would say about all of that is that it kind of puts you on your toes. You want everything to be spick and span, and you want a good first impression with those regulators. But they were very nice, extremely helpful. They had some suggestions for the future, and kind of reinforced some of the questions that we had about further expansion in the future and whatnot. But that all went very smooth. I have seen some other mushroom farms in the past that cut corners and ended up having to shut down and relocate to a more lenient district. So that is one thing that I like to tell new mushroom farmers is that make sure you have all your ducks in a row when it comes to regulations, because the last thing you want to do is invest all this time and money and energy into your business and then have it not be up to code, and everything gets shut down and you would lose out on all that effort and capital. So that was kind of our first hurdle of the summer. So after that, there was a few weeks that went by, and we had some issues with our cooler. So that was also pretty stressful. One of the most important things when you're growing mushrooms is to have the proper cooling for storage after you harvest your mushrooms. So right now we have a cooler that is a converted trailer. I'm going to do a video on that pretty soon. But our heat sensor inside that cooler went out. So luckily the actual refrigerant system was working properly. It was just this little sensor that went out, which kind of made me reflect on how important redundancy is, especially in equipment like a cooler. But we ended up ordering that part, and then it came in 4 days later. But let me tell you, those 4 days were very stressful. That was prime time market season, but thankfully our cooler was hovering between 40 and 50 degrees, and it didn't go up to past where the mushrooms would have suffered greatly. So I'm thankful for that. It was very stressful because every hour or so I would check our cooler to make sure the temperatures were working, even though the sensor was out. So that happened back in June or early July. And then as the season progressed, here on our farm, we are currently operating under two 20-amp circuits. So that is another challenge, is as we built out the building, the timeline for our electrical upgrade has been delayed and delayed by Core Electric, which that's the power company here in Sedalia. So we're kind of at their whim when it comes to any kind of upgrades with our transformer specifically. We're trying to upgrade that so we can get a bigger sterilizer. Now, before we did that, we have been just using two 20-amp circuits. So our farm is extremely efficient. However, there's limitations when it comes to refrigerating or air conditioning our building. So probably about 4 weeks ago, we had a really hot spell here, and that was the first time where temperatures were really challenging for our business. So it got up into the upper 90s. Thankfully, once again, I was growing about 8 different varieties at the time. So only the chestnut mushrooms and the king oysters suffered, but we did have a large amount of volume that ended up not pinning, and it just stayed dormant until recently. So for a couple weeks at the market, our volume was really low, and that was a challenge that we had to get through. So diversity in the grow room is very important, especially at a new location when you're still dialing in your grow, and before we even have air conditioning in there, which that kind of all ties into the infrastructure and scaling. So I would say our fourth hurdle right now is just scaling our production and meeting the demands of our new customers. So like I said earlier in the video, we've been doing 2 farmers markets this year, and that's been really successful. However, growing that many mushrooms and doing it very systematically has been difficult without our new electric. So they're scheduled to come out here in September. So hopefully we get our new pole and our new transformer in September, and then we can continue forward with the development of our electricity in our building. That's kind of been the bottleneck now at this new spot. Okay, guys, so I hope that gives you a clear insight into some of the challenges going into year 6 of a mushroom farm. Please give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Subscribe if you're looking forward to more videos like these. Check out our Etsy shop, Fresh Fungi. We've got some new hats up. People are really loving these hats, and we ended up ordering a bunch of new colors. Hats, like, they're one of my favorite products that we have, besides all of our genetics. So I'm also going to be doing a bunch of fall mushrooms. I've got a bunch of liquid culture that I'm growing out, and I really want to do some videos of our scaling up of our mushroom farm. So yeah, subscribe, hit that notification button if you're excited about these new videos, and until next time, much love.